The stars stopped erasing worlds the day one human refused to stop feeling. No weapon, no army, just a song sent into the void. Stay till the end to understand why the universe cried back. Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe to keep humanity singing. The desert wind carried nothing but dust and regret. Dr. Nathan Cole stood in the shadow of the Carl 42 radio station, a relic from an era when humanity still believed the cosmos cared about their voices. The observatory had been decommissioned 15 years ago, right around the time Nathan stopped believing in much of anything. Now it served as his tomb of choice, a place where a man could study the universe without having to be part of it. He adjusted the ancient telescope with hands that had forgotten how to tremble. Routine was mercy. Routine was survival. Every night, the same sequence. Calibrate the instruments, scan predetermined frequencies, document the silence, and pretend it mattered. On his workbench sat a photograph he never looked at directly. A woman with kind eyes, a girl with a smile that could crack stars, both gone in an instant, victims of a diplomatic failure between humans and the Garesh delegation. A miscommunication, a weapons test near a civilian transport, 17 seconds of human error that took 8 years of his life and turned them into ash. The last thing Nathan had sent into space was their cremated remains. Now he studied the void they had entered, searching for proof that the universe was exactly what he suspected: indifferent, cold, and utterly empty of meaning. The signal came at 11:47 p.m. At first, Nathan thought it was interference. Solar flares had been active all week, but as he isolated the frequency, his breath caught. It was not random. It was not natural. It was structured, rhythmic, harmonic. It was music. Nathan's fingers moved across the keyboard with sudden urgency, the first real emotion he had felt in months. He recorded it, analyzed it, ran it through every filter and algorithm he had. The pattern was undeniable. Someone, or something, was playing a melody in the key of human longing. The harmonics reminded him of Debussy, of moonlight on water, of things he had trained himself not to remember. He sat back, staring at the waveform on his screen. For the first time in years, his hands were shaking. The world had been silent for a century. After the wars, the broken treaties, the cultural wounds that never healed, humanity had retreated behind its walls. The galactic silence, they called it, a collective decision to stop reaching for the stars and tend to the scars they had earned. Nathan had stopped reaching long before the rest of them. But now, looking at that impossible signal, something ancient and buried stirred in his chest. Curiosity. The faintest tremor of hope. Or maybe just the memory of what hope used to feel like. He did something he could not explain, something that defied 100 years of protocol and every lesson his grief had taught him. He opened a transmission channel, pulled up an old file, a simple melody his daughter used to hum before bed, and sent it back into the void. The last thing I sent into space was my daughter's ashes, he thought as he pressed the button. Now I am sending her song. For 3 nights, nothing happened. Nathan told himself he had been foolish, that grief had finally cracked something essential in his mind. He went back to his routine, tried to forget the moment of irrational hope. On the 4th night, the horizon lit up with blue light. Nathan was cleaning the telescope lenses when the glow appeared, descending in perfect silence toward his station. He grabbed the rifle he kept by the door, more out of instinct than reason. His heart hammered against his ribs as the light grew closer, resolving into a sphere of luminescence that touched down 100 meters from his observatory. No engine roar, no sonic boom, just impossible, beautiful silence. Nathan's hands were trembling again. The rifle felt ridiculous in his grip, a child's toy against the unknown. What are you going to do? Shoot starlight? The sphere's light dimmed. A door materialized in its side, a seam of brilliance that opened like a wound in reality. And from it stepped something that made Nathan forget every word he had ever known. She was tall, almost human in proportion, but that was where familiarity ended and wonder began. Her skin was translucent, like quartz held up to moonlight, with faint traces of bioluminescence pulsing beneath the surface in patterns that suggested a heartbeat though Nathan suspected whatever kept her alive was nothing like human biology. Her hair moved as if underwater, flowing strands of liquid light that defied gravity and reason. And her eyes. Her eyes were dual-toned, one the color of deep ocean at twilight, the other like embers in a dying fire. When they fixed on Nathan, he felt the rifle slip from his fingers. It hit the sand with a muffled thump that sounded very far away. She took a step toward him. Nathan took a step back, his boots catching on the rocks behind him. He was 43 years old, a doctor of astrophysics, and he had just forgotten how his legs worked. She smiled, a gentle expression that somehow made him feel like he was the strange one, the alien thing in this desert that had forgotten how to be beautiful. Then she spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that no human throat could produce, yet perfectly clear in English. "Are you the one who answered?" Nathan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His brain was trying to catalog her, to fit her into some framework of understanding, and failing spectacularly. She was not beautiful in any conventional sense. She was something else entirely. She was impossible, and his chest hurt just looking at her. He managed. "Yes, I sent the response." She tilted her head, and the movement sent ripples through her hair like light through water. "Your melody sounded lonely, so I came. Lonely." The word hit him harder than it should have. When was the last time someone had noticed he existed, let alone that he was lonely? "You are Lunari," Nathan said, the words surfacing from some half-remembered diplomatic briefing decades ago. "You are from the Andromeda Cooperation." "I am Eris Valen," she said, and the way she pronounced her own name made it sound like music. "And yes, I am Lunari, though I have not been home in many years." She moved closer, and Nathan realized with a start that she was studying him with the same intensity he was studying her. Her dual-toned eyes swept over his face, lingered on the gray in his beard, the lines around his eyes. "Why do humans hide tears?" she asked suddenly. Nathan blinked. "What?" "Your eyes are wet, but you do not let them fall." She reached out, and before Nathan could move, her fingers touched his cheek. Her skin was warm, almost feverish, and where she touched him, he felt a strange tingling sensation, like electricity without the pain. Nathan jerked back, his heart racing. "What are you doing?" Eris withdrew her hand, looking genuinely confused. "Among my people, we greet by sharing warmth. I apologize. I forgot that humans find touch uncomfortable." "I am not uncomfortable," Nathan said, which was a lie. He was terrified, but not of her. He was terrified of the fact that her touch had felt like the first real thing in 5 years. I was not expecting." "Company?" Eris finished softly. "Neither was I. I have been searching for a very long time for someone who would answer. Most civilizations stopped listening centuries ago." Nathan stared at her. "You have been traveling alone?" 12 years, she said. "Following echoes, listening to the silence between stars. Your song was the first one I heard that sounded like it was meant for someone." Something twisted in Nathan's chest. He thought of the photograph on his workbench, the melody he had sent. Emma's song. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you spend 12 years looking for loneliness?" Eris met his eyes, and for the first time, Nathan saw something in her expression that looked almost human. Sadness. Deep, ancient sadness. "Because I also lost everything," she said quietly, "and you were the only one who sang back." The words hung in the desert air between them, and Nathan realized that somewhere 500 miles away, satellites were probably tracking this encounter. Government systems were lighting up. Within hours, maybe minutes, they would come. "You need to leave," Nathan said suddenly. "If they find you here, they will detain you. The galactic silence is not just a metaphor. It is law." Eris tilted her head again. "I know. I have read your treaties, but I also know that sometimes laws are just fear written in official language. Fear that kept us alive, Nathan said. Fear that ended wars. Fear that made you forget how to listen, Eris countered. She looked past him, at the observatory, at the old equipment, at the photograph he had thought she could not see from this distance. But her eyes were strange, and he suspected she saw more than he wanted her to. You still listen, she said, even when no one answers. Why? Nathan did not have a good answer for that, or rather, he had too many answers, none of them comforting. Because someone should, he finally said. Eris smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes, making them glow brighter. Then may I stay? Just for a little while? I promise to leave before your fear arrives in uniform. Nathan knew he should say no. He knew this was dangerous, potentially catastrophic. But when he looked at her, at this strange woman made of light and sadness who had crossed the galaxy because his song sounded lonely, he found himself nodding. Just for a while, he said. Eris stepped closer, close enough that he could see the patterns of light beneath her skin, like constellations waiting to be named. Thank you, Dr. Nathan Cole, she said, for being the first human in a century brave enough to still feel alone. For 3 days, Nathan Cole remembered what it felt like to be alive. Eris was endlessly curious in a way that reminded Nathan of children before the world taught them to stop asking questions. She wanted to know everything: why humans needed sleep, why Earth's atmosphere smelled like rain after storms, why Nathan kept a piano with broken strings in the corner of his observatory. It belonged to my daughter, he found himself saying on the second morning, surprising himself with the admission. She was learning to play before. He did not finish. He did not need to. Eris simply nodded, her luminous eyes reflecting understanding that needed no words. Then she did something impossible. She walked to the piano, ran her fingers over the broken strings, and played. The notes that emerged were wrong, discordant, missing half their frequencies. But somehow, through means Nathan could not begin to understand, Eris made them sound like music anyway. How? Nathan breathed. Lunari can hear intentions, Eris said, still playing. Your daughter intended these notes to be beautiful, so they are. Nathan felt his throat tighten. For the first time in 5 years he laughed. It came out rusty, broken, but real. Eris turned to look at him, and her expression was pure delight. You should do that more often. Laughter looks good on you. On the third day, Nathan made what might have been the worst decision of his life. Or the best. He was no longer sure there was a difference. I want to show you something, he said. He drove them in his battered truck across the desert, Eris fascinated by everything. The way the vehicle moved, the sensation of motion, the endless expanse of sand and rock. They reached the Grand Canyon just as the sun was beginning to rise. Nathan had not been here since Emma's funeral. He had scattered half her ashes here in this place she had loved, where she had once told him the earth was so old it remembered when stars were young. Eris stood at the rim, and for a long moment she was absolutely still. Then Nathan saw something he had not expected. A single tear, luminescent and golden, sliding down her translucent cheek. Among my people, Eris whispered, we have technology that can simulate any site in the galaxy. We can project memories, manufacture experiences, create beauty on command. She turned to him and her eyes were shining. But this is real. And it is extraordinary because it does not need us to exist. It simply is. Nathan felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been sealed for so long he had forgotten it was there. Humans destroy what they love to prove they love it, Eris said softly, echoing his own thoughts. But you also create monuments to grief. You remember. That is rare, Nathan. In all my travels, I have found few species who honor their pain instead of erasing it. They stood there as the sun painted the canyon in impossible colors, and Nathan realized he was crying. Just a little. Just enough. When they returned to the observatory that evening, Nathan taught Eris how to make coffee. She found it disgusting, bitter beyond reason, but she drank it anyway because he did, and somehow that small gesture of shared experience meant more than any of the words they had exchanged. "I must tell you something," Eris said as they sat outside, watching the stars emerge. "My people record what we call quantum echoes. When a being experiences intense emotion, it leaves a residual signature in space-time. We can hear them. Distant whispers of what was felt." Nathan looked at her, not understanding. "Why are you telling me this?" Eris met his eyes. "Because 12 years ago I heard an echo, a child singing. So much love in that song, even as she was dying. The echo was strong enough to travel across systems, to reach me in the depths of Andromeda. I followed it. It led me here, to you." The world tilted. Nathan's hands were shaking again. "Emma, your daughter sent her love into the cosmos," Eris said gently. "I have been following that echo ever since, and it led me to the man who still sings the same song." Nathan could not speak, could not breathe. The grief he had carried for so long suddenly felt different. Not lighter, but changed, transformed. "You came because of her," he finally managed. "I came because both of you were calling," Eris said, "and I could not bear to leave that much love unanswered." Nathan reached out, and this time, when his fingers found hers, he did not pull away. Her skin was warm, real, alive. "Thank you," he whispered. They sat in silence as the desert grew dark, and for the first time since Emma died, Nathan felt something that terrified him more than grief ever had. Hope. The helicopters arrived an hour later. Nathan heard them before he saw them, the rhythmic chopping of military rotors cutting through the night air. Eris stood immediately, her luminous form suddenly tense. "They are here for me," she said. "They are here for both of us," Nathan corrected. He had violated the galactic silence, aided an unauthorized alien contact, broken treaties that had kept humanity safe for 100 years. The helicopters landed in a storm of dust and light. Soldiers emerged, weapons raised, moving with the precision of people who had been trained to see everything alien as threat first, wonder second. A man in a colonel's uniform stepped forward, his face hard and weathered. "Dr. Nathan Cole, by authority of the Unified Earth Defense, you are under arrest for violation of the Silence Accord. The entity will be detained for questioning." Nathan stepped forward, placing himself between Eris and the guns. "Her name is Eris Valen. She is a lunary diplomat, and if you hurt her, you will have to shoot me first." The colonel's expression did not change, but Nathan saw something flicker in his eyes, not sympathy, recognition. The colonel knew what it meant to draw a line in the sand. "Step aside, Dr. Cole," the colonel said quietly. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be." Nathan met the man's eyes. "Shoot me first," he repeated. Behind him, Eris touched his shoulder. "Nathan, it is all right. I will go with them." "It is not all right," Nathan said, his voice breaking. "Nothing about this is all right." But the soldiers were already moving forward, and Nathan knew that courage had limits, especially when it was just one broken man against an army of people who had learned to fear the stars. As they led Eris toward the helicopter, she looked back at him one last time. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible over the rotors, "for 3 days of beauty." Then she was gone, and Nathan was alone again with the desert and his grief, and the terrible knowledge that he had just lost the only thing in 5 years that had made him want to keep breathing. The holding cell was underground, 300 meters below Edwards Air Force Base, California. Eris sat in the center of a transparent containment field. Her luminescence dimmed, her usual grace replaced by the stillness of a bird with broken wings. Nathan knew all of this because Dr. Sarah Chen told him. And Sarah Chen knew because she had helped design the facility 15 years ago, back when they were both young enough to believe that protecting humanity meant building better cages. "They are keeping her in sensory deprivation," Sarah said, her voice tight with anger. They were both too old to express safely. "Standard protocol for unknowns, 12 hours of isolation, then interrogation. Repeat until cooperative or broken." Nathan stared at the classified files on Sarah's tablet. His hands clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "She came in peace. She answered a message I sent." "How is that a crime?" "Because peace does not matter anymore," Sarah said. "Only control does." She looked at him, and Nathan saw the ghost of the woman he used to know. The one who had cried at the memorial service for his family. The one who had walked away from astrophysics because she could not stand working for people who weaponized wonder. "But there is something you should know. Something they are keeping classified." She pulled up another file. "The Lunari ship has been transmitting continuously since it arrived. Not to Earth, to the Galactic Council. The transmissions are encoded, but we managed to decrypt fragments." She zoomed in on a translated segment. "Eris was not exploring, she was testing us." Nathan looked up sharply. "Testing?" "The Lunari are diplomatic assessors. They were sent to measure whether humanity still possesses emotional capacity, whether we still feel." Sarah's expression was grim. "It is not just us, Nathan. 50 species have been isolated under what they call the Silence Protocol. All of them suspected of emotional emptiness, and Eris was sent to find proof that we are not one of them." Nathan's mind raced. Then her coming here, responding to my signal, was exactly what she needed, Sarah finished. Evidence that humans still reach out, still hope, still love. She paused. "The question is, what happens if she reports that we do not?" Nathan did not need her to spell it out. He had read enough xenopolitical theory to understand. Species without emotional capacity were considered evolutionary dead ends. Dangerous, unstable, expendable. "I need to see her," Nathan said. "You cannot. Harker has the base locked down. He is the one interrogating her, and—" Sarah hesitated. "Nathan, Colonel Harker lost his entire battalion 30 years ago because of what he calls an emotional decision. He blames feeling for their deaths. He will not be sympathetic to your situation." Nathan looked at his old friend, at the woman who had once believed in reaching for the stars. "Sarah, you helped design that facility. You know every system, every protocol. You built the security architecture." Sarah closed her eyes. "Nathan, do not ask me to do this." "I am not asking," Nathan said quietly. "I am begging, because if I do not see her, if I do not try, then everything we lost, everyone we loved, every reason we ever looked up at the stars, it all meant nothing." For a long moment, Sarah was silent. Then she opened her tablet and started typing. "The ventilation shafts were my idea. I always thought it was important to have back doors in cages, just in case we ever put the wrong thing inside." Nathan felt something like gratitude, sharp and painful. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," Sarah said, "because if you do this, there is no coming back. You will be a traitor, an enemy of the state, and I will be the one who helped you become one." "I have been dead for 5 years," Nathan said. "This is just paperwork." 6 hours later, Nathan was crawling through ventilation shafts with the blueprints Sarah had provided memorized in his head. The facility was exactly as he remembered it, because he had consulted on its design, back when he still believed that protecting humanity meant building walls instead of bridges. "You forgot I built this goddamn thing," Nathan thought as he bypassed the 3rd security checkpoint with a command code he had written into the system as an Easter egg 15 years ago. A little insurance policy for a younger, more paranoid version of himself. The irony was not lost on him. When he finally reached the observation room above Eris's cell, Nathan's breath caught. She was barely glowing, her usual luminescence reduced to a faint shimmer. She sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, and even through the reinforced glass, Nathan could see that something essential had dimmed in her. He found the access panel, overrode the lock, and dropped into the containment level. Alarms would trigger soon, but he had maybe 3 minutes before security arrived. "Eris!" he called through the field. She looked up, and when she saw him, her eyes widened. "Nathan, you should not be here." "Neither should you," he said, working on the field controls. "But we seem to make a habit of being where we do not belong." "They will imprison you," Eris said, standing now, moving to the edge of the field. "You came all this way knowing that." "I came all this way because you did," Nathan said. The field flickered and died. Eris stepped out, and even depleted, even exhausted, she was still the most impossibly beautiful thing he had ever seen. "You really are terrible at self-preservation," she said, and there was something like affection in her voice. "Funny," Nathan said. "A friend just told me the same thing." They made it to the ventilation shaft before the alarm started screaming. They made it 3 miles before Sarah's commandeered delivery drone and weather balloon contraption finally gave out, dropping them in a dried riverbed somewhere in the Mojave. Nathan had forgotten that his old colleague had a talent for absurd improvisation. The escape had involved 2 shipping drones, a helium weather balloon, and what Sarah had called creative misuse of agricultural flight patterns. "I cannot believe that worked," Nathan gasped, lying in the sand. "Neither can I," Eris admitted. And despite everything, despite the sirens in the distance and the certainty that they were now fugitives, Nathan started laughing. Eris looked at him like he had lost his mind. "We are being hunted by your military. Why are you laughing?" "Because I stole you from a black site using equipment meant to deliver produce," Nathan said between breaths. "Because I am 43 years old and I just crawled through a ventilation shaft. Because everything about this is completely insane, and I am more awake than I have been in 5 years. Eris sat down beside him, her luminescence returning in slow pulses. "Humans are very strange." "You traveled 12 years to find strange," Nathan said. "Congratulations, you succeeded." For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. Then Eris spoke, her voice soft. "There is something I must show you, something I have carried for a very long time." She raised her hand, and between her fingers, light coalesced into a sphere. The sphere expanded, and Nathan found himself looking at something impossible. A recording. Not visual, not audio, but something deeper. A memory preserved in quantum form. And in that memory, he heard his daughter singing. Emma's voice, clear and bright, humming the melody that Nathan had sent into space. He watched her, or the echo of her, sitting in the passenger seat of their transport ship, humming while her mother piloted them toward the orbital station. She looked happy, safe, alive. Then the echo ended, frozen at the exact moment before the collision, before the explosion, before everything ended. Nathan could not breathe, could not think. The grief that had been living in his chest for 5 years suddenly felt new again, raw and terrible and somehow impossibly beautiful. "She sent this?" he whispered. "Not intentionally," Eris said gently. "Strong emotions leave quantum signatures, joy, love, wonder. When she sang that day, she was so happy that the universe itself remembered, and I heard it. 12 years ago, in the depths of Andromeda, I heard your daughter singing, and I thought, someone that loved is still out there, someone that loved enough to echo across stars." She looked at him with those impossible dual-toned eyes. I followed that echo. It led me through 17 systems, past dying stars and empty worlds. It led me to you, Nathan. Because you are still singing the same song. Nathan felt something break and heal simultaneously in his chest. "You came all this way because of Emma." "I came because of both of you," Eris corrected. "Because love that strong does not disappear. It transforms. And you transformed it into something that could reach across the galaxy." Nathan reached out, and this time, when his hand found hers, he held on. "Thank you for bringing her back, even for a moment." "She never left," Eris said. "She is in every star you study, every signal you send, every moment you choose to keep looking up. They sat there as the night deepened, and Nathan realized that he was not just grateful. He was not just hopeful. He was in love in the most terrifying, impossible, completely human way, with this strange woman made of light who had crossed the galaxy because his daughter had hummed a song. "Iris," he said quietly, "what were you really sent here to measure?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, and it sounded like music fading. "There is something coming. The Galactic Council calls it the Cold Mist. It is an ancient artificial intelligence, created by a species long extinct, designed to identify and eliminate civilizations that have become emotionally empty, hollow, dead inside even as they still move and speak and pretend to live." Nathan felt cold. "And humanity?" "Is being tested," Eris said. "For 100 years you have been isolated, watched, measured. The cold mist requires proof of authentic feeling before it spares a world. One genuine act of love, strong enough to register on quantum sensors. That is all it takes." "And if we fail?" Eris met his eyes. "Then in 3 days the cold mist will arrive, and Earth will be marked as evolutionarily empty, and empty worlds do not survive the protocol." Nathan stared at her. 3 days. I was sent to find proof you still feel. And I have found it, Nathan. In you. In your grief that refuses to become indifference. In your hope that refuses to die. She smiled, sad and beautiful. "But I do not know if one man's love is enough to save a species." Nathan pulled her closer, and she let him, her head resting against his shoulder. "Then we had better make sure it is loud enough to hear across the galaxy." In the distance, helicopter searchlights were sweeping the desert, but Nathan did not care, because for the first time in 5 years, he had a reason to fight for tomorrow. "If the world is going to end," he said quietly, "I want the last thing I see to be you." Eris turned to look at him, and her luminescence flared bright. "Then let us make sure the world has a better ending than that." She leaned in, and their lips met, and Nathan forgot that he had ever been afraid of hope. Colonel Marcus Harker had seen 43 years of service, 3 wars, and the death of everyone he had ever called friend. He had learned one essential truth in that time: emotion was a luxury the universe could not afford. So when Dr. Sarah Chen confronted him in the command center with evidence that he had known about the cold mist for 6 months, with proof that he had actively suppressed diplomatic channels, with data showing he had kept Earth isolated not for protection, but for control, he did not flinch. "You condemned us," Sarah said, her voice shaking with rage. "You knew we were being tested. You knew we needed to show emotional capacity. And you locked us down anyway. Why?" Harker looked at her with eyes that had stopped seeing anything but threat assessments decades ago. "Because emotion killed my men. 37 soldiers dead because a lieutenant made a decision based on what he felt instead of what he knew. That is what happens when you let feeling override protocol, Dr. Chen." "So you decided to kill the whole species instead?" Sarah was shouting now. "You kept us silent, kept us isolated, because you think fear is safer than hope?" "Fear keeps you alive," Harker said. "Hope gets you killed." In the detention cell, Nathan and Eris listened to the interrogation through Sarah's hacked comms channel. Nathan felt sick, not with fear, with understanding. "He is like you were," Eris said quietly. "A man who lost so much he decided feeling anything was the same as failing everyone." Nathan could not argue, because she was right. He had been Harker, might still be, if a woman made of light had not taught him how to breathe again. "The cold mist will arrive in 68 hours, Eris said, checking readings from her ship that Sarah had managed to relay. "To pass the protocol, we need to generate an emotional quantum signature strong enough to register across light years. It requires a psychic connection between human and alien, a moment of pure, authentic feeling." How strong? Nathan asked. Eris looked at him, and he saw fear in her eyes for the first time. Strong enough to burn out neural pathways. Strong enough to stop hearts. The test has never been passed by direct connection. Most species fail because they refuse to risk individuals for collective survival. What are you saying? I am saying that to save your world, one of us would need to channel emotions powerful enough to register as life itself, and that level of intensity would likely kill whoever attempts it. Nathan felt the world narrow to this moment. Then I will do it. Nathan. I have been dead for 5 years, Eris, I told you. This is just making it official. He took her hands. You brought my daughter back to me. You taught me how to feel again. If I can use that to save Earth, then my life finally means something. Eris was crying now, her tears glowing like falling stars. I did not travel 12 years to watch you die. Then you understand why I have to do this, Nathan said, because I did not spend 5 years surviving just to watch you condemn yourself for my species' failure. For a moment, they simply held each other, and Nathan thought about how strange it was that he had found love at the end of the world. Then Sarah's voice crackled through the comms. Nathan, we have a problem. Harker just authorized a strike on the Lunari ship in orbit. He is escalating to kinetic protocols. If he succeeds, the cold mist will interpret it as proof of aggression. Automatic failure. Nathan and Ares looked at each other. The equation was simple. Stop Harker, or let him destroy the only chance Earth had. How long? Nathan asked. Missiles launch in 20 minutes, Sarah said. But I might have one more trick. If you can get to Central Command, I can override the launch sequence. Harker's codes are military, but the facility's core security still runs on the system you and I designed together. Nathan felt something like hope bloom in his chest. The Easter eggs? Every single one, Sarah confirmed. Including the one you insisted on hiding in the self-destruct protocol because you thought it was funny. It was funny, Nathan said. Then he looked at Eris. Can you get us to Central Command? Her luminescence flared. My ship is still in orbit. If I can reach a transmitter, I can call it down. But Nathan, the mist, we are running out of time. We will make time, Nathan said, with more confidence than he felt. They made it to Central Command with 8 minutes to spare. Sarah had been right about the Easter eggs. Nathan's younger self had been paranoid and creative in equal measure, leaving backdoors throughout the system. As they breached the final firewall, Nathan could not help but think, thank God I was a cynical asshole. Harker was there, of course, standing at the command console, his hand hovering over the launch authorization. When he saw them, his expression did not change. Dr. Cole, Miss Valen, you are both under arrest for trying to save humanity while you actively destroy it? Nathan interrupted. Yeah, we know the charges. Stand down, Colonel, Sarah said, emerging from the side corridor with a tablet showing legal codes Nathan did not understand but suspected were damning. I have evidence of your cover-up. The Council does not matter, Harker said. What matters is survival, and we survive by removing threats before they can hurt us. She is not a threat, Nathan said. She is our only chance. She is both, Harker replied, and I will not gamble Earth's existence on the feelings of a broken man and an alien we do not understand. His finger moved toward the launch button. Eris stepped forward. Colonel Harker, what did you feel when your soldiers died? Harker froze. That is not guilt, Eris continued quietly. Rage. Grief so profound you decided it was better to feel nothing at all. I understand. My people recorded the echo of that day. Your men died bravely, and you have been punishing yourself for surviving them ever since. You do not know anything about me, Harker said, but his voice cracked. I know you are afraid, Eris said. Afraid that if you feel again, you will make another mistake, another wrong choice. So you choose nothing. But Colonel, nothing is also a choice, and it is the one that guarantees we all die. Harker's hand was shaking now. If I do not launch, the alien ship remains. The threat remains. The threat is inside you, Nathan said, not her. You are so afraid of emotion killing people that you are willing to kill everyone to avoid feeling it. For a long moment, Harker stood frozen. Then slowly, his hand moved away from the button. He looked at Eris, then Nathan, and something broke behind his eyes. God help me, he whispered. I do not know how to feel anymore. Then let us teach you, Eris said gently, before the mist arrives, before it is too late. Outside, the sky was beginning to change, a gray veil on the horizon spreading like infection. The cold mist had arrived early, and they were out of time. The cold mist moved like death given form. It was not a cloud, not a storm, not anything that belonged to physics as humanity understood it. It was erasure, a gray nothing that consumed light, sound, and everything that made the world feel alive. Nathan watched it from the observation deck of the Carl 42 station, where Eris had insisted they return. If the world was ending, she had said, they should at least end it somewhere that had witnessed the beginning. Tell me how the connection works, Nathan said. Eris pulled up a holographic display from her ship's systems. Lunari physiology allows us to interface with neural patterns. We can share thoughts, memories, emotions at the quantum level. If we connect, and you generate an emotional response strong enough, the resonance will register on the mist's sensors. And kill me, Nathan finished. Potentially, Eris admitted. Human neurology was not designed for this kind of bandwidth. The pain alone might stop your heart. Then I will make sure to feel something worth dying for, Nathan said. Eris grabbed his hand, her luminescence flickering with distress. There must be another way. I did not cross the galaxy to watch you sacrifice yourself, and I did not spend 5 years alone to watch Earth die when I could stop it, Nathan said. He cupped her face, feeling the warmth of her impossible skin. Eris, you gave me Emma back. You taught me how to hope again. If I can turn that into something that saves 8 billion lives, then dying becomes the most meaningful thing I have ever done. That is not fair, Eris whispered. You are asking me to let you go. I am asking you to help me become something more than grief, Nathan said. Please. For a long moment, Eris said nothing. Then she nodded, tears streaming down her luminous face. Then we do it together. Bilateral connection. If you are going to burn, I burn with you. Eris! No, she said firmly. You do not get to be the only one who chooses love over survival. That is not how this works. Nathan stared at her, this impossible woman who had saved his life without ever touching it, and realized that he had never stood a chance against falling in love with her. Together, he agreed. Sarah arrived with a connection apparatus, her expression grim. The mist is 12 miles out. When it reaches the station, the quantum readings will determine if Earth passes or fails. You have maybe 30 minutes. That is 29 more than we need, Nathan said with more confidence than he felt. As Sarah set up the equipment, Harker appeared in the doorway. The colonel looked 20 years older than he had that morning, as if allowing himself to feel again had cracked something fundamental. I owe you an apology, Harker said quietly. All of you. I was wrong. About everything. You were scared, Eris said. Fear is not wrong. It is what you do with it that matters. Harker nodded slowly. For what it is worth, I hope you succeed. Both of you. Because if you can prove that love is stronger than logic, than fear, than everything I have believed for 30 years. He did not finish. He did not need to. Nathan and Eris sat across from each other, the neural connection interfaces glowing between them. Sarah had rigged a global broadcast. If they succeeded, the world would watch humanity choose to feel. If they failed, at least Earth would die, knowing someone had tried. Ready? Eris asked. No, Nathan admitted. You? Not even close, Eris said. She smiled. Let us do this anyway. They activated the connection. For a moment, there was nothing. Then everything happened at once. Nathan felt Eris's mind touch his, and it was like diving into an ocean of light. He experienced 12 years of her loneliness, traveling through empty systems, listening to dead worlds, following an echo that grew fainter with every light year. He felt her hope, stubborn and irrational, that somewhere in the galaxy someone was still singing, and Eris felt Nathan's grief, the weight of 5 years spent pretending to be alive. The photograph he could not look at, the music he could not play, the daughter he would never stop mourning. They felt each other's pain, and instead of breaking them, it made them stronger. Nathan reached deeper, pulling up every moment of joy he had experienced with Emma. Her first laugh, her terrible jokes, the way she hummed while doing homework. He felt Eris amplify those memories, adding her own longing, her own recognition of love that refused to die. Together they created something new. Not just grief, not just hope. Something that transcended both. A feeling that said, I loved, I lost, and I choose to love again anyway. The resonance grew. Nathan felt his heart racing, felt pain building behind his eyes. Eris was shaking, her luminescence flickering wildly. The connection was too much, too intense, burning through their neural pathways like fire through dry wood. But they held on. Nathan, Eris gasped. I cannot. Do not let go, Nathan managed. Whatever happens, do not let go. The mist was at the perimeter now, gray nothing pressing against the windows. Sarah was shouting readings that Nathan could not process, something about quantum resonance, about detection thresholds. Not enough. They were not generating enough signal. Nathan felt his heart stuttering. Eris was beginning to dissolve at the edges, her form losing coherence. They were dying, and it still was not enough. Then Nathan heard it. A voice, soft and impossibly clear. Emma. Not a memory, not an echo. His daughter, reaching across death itself, singing the melody that had started everything. And Nathan understood. The mist did not measure love. It measured transformation. It measured the ability to take pain and make it into something that could cross stars. He pulled every ounce of grief, every moment of loss, every second of 5 years spent learning how to survive without the people he loved. And instead of letting it destroy him, he consciously, deliberately transformed it into gratitude. For having loved at all, for having been loved back, for having been given the chance to feel this much. I loved, he whispered, his voice breaking. I lost, and I choose to love again. Eris echoed him, their voices harmonizing. We loved, we lost, we choose to love again. The resonance exploded outward, a quantum wave of pure, authentic emotion that registered across light years. And the mist stopped. Nathan collapsed. So did Eris. The world went dark, and Nathan's last thought before unconsciousness was that dying while choosing to love was infinitely better than surviving while choosing to fear. He did not die, though. Neither did Eris. When Nathan woke, Sarah was crying and laughing simultaneously, and even Harker looked like he might believe in miracles. It worked, Sarah said. The mist detected the signal, classified Earth as emotionally viable. It is retreating. Nathan looked at Eris, who was barely glowing, her form fragile. We did it? We did it, she confirmed, her voice weak. Though I never want to do that again. Nathan managed a laugh that turned into a cough. They had saved the world and survived. Barely. Outside, the gray veil was pulling back, revealing stars. The broadcast went viral in 17 minutes. 8 billion people had watched two beings, one human and one not, choose to burn themselves alive with emotion rather than let the world die hollow. They had watched Nathan Cole, a man most of Earth had never heard of, transform grief into something powerful enough to be detected across the galaxy. and humanity remembered what it felt like to hope. Within an hour, the melody Emma had hummed was trending globally. People were singing it in the streets, in their homes, in languages Nathan had never heard. The song of a little girl who had died 5 years ago was suddenly the anthem of a species that had decided to feel again. Sarah found Nathan in the medical bay, where doctors were running scans to determine how badly the neural connection had damaged him. Eris was in the adjacent room, Lunari physicians trying to understand why she had not dissolved entirely under the strain. "You need to see this," Sarah said, holding up her tablet. On the screen, Nathan watched protesters dismantling the monuments to the galactic silence. In New York, in Beijing, in São Paulo, people were tearing down the walls that symbolized humanity's retreat from the cosmos. They were painting murals of Eris and Nathan, turning a moment of desperate love into something that meant solidarity, hope, and the stubborn human refusal to die quietly. "You saved more than lives," Sarah said. "You saved the idea that feeling is worth the risk." Nathan looked at his hands. They were shaking again, but this time not from fear, from exhaustion, from the knowledge that he had touched something vast and beautiful and had barely survived it. "The mist," he said. "Is it really gone?" "Not gone," Sarah said. "Changed. We received a transmission from the Galactic Council. The mist has modified its protocols. Earth's quantum signature was so strong that it forced a recalibration. 53 other species that were marked for erasure are being re-evaluated. You did not just save humanity, Nathan. You changed the rules for everyone." Nathan closed his eyes. "I just wanted to save her. To save Eris. I did not think about—" "That is exactly why it worked," Sarah interrupted. "Because you were not trying to save humanity in the abstract. You were trying to save one person you loved. And that specificity, that individual illogical devotion, that is what registered as authentic." In the adjacent room, Eris stirred. Nathan was at her side before the doctors could stop him. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself," Eris replied, her voice weak but steady. Her luminescence was returning in slow pulses. "We are alive." "Seems like it," Nathan said. "Though I am not sure how I feel about that yet." Eris laughed, then winced. "Everything hurts. Is that normal for humans?" "When you do something monumentally stupid?" "Yes," Nathan said. "Welcome to the human experience." She reached for his hand. "The connection burned out my ability to hear quantum echoes. I will never hear your daughter sing again, never follow another voice across the stars." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "I am sorry." "Do not be," Eris said. "I traded one kind of hearing for another. Now I can stay. With you, if you want me to." Nathan stared at her. "Stay?" "On Earth. Wholesome. The Galactic Council has requested I become a permanent liaison, a bridge between your species and the rest of the galaxy. They think, after what we just did, that humans and Lunari could teach the universe something about transformation." "What do you think?" Nathan asked. Eris met his eyes. "I think I followed an echo for 12 years to find you. I am not ready to leave yet." Nathan kissed her, and it hurt, and it was perfect. The next 72 hours were chaos. The Galactic Council formally ended the silence protocol. Diplomatic channels reopened. 50 species sent delegations. Earth's isolationism collapsed overnight, replaced by a hunger to reconnect that no government could contain. And at the center of it all were Nathan and Eris, two people who had accidentally become symbols of everything humanity had been missing. Harker resigned his commission. In his final address, he said something that would be quoted for generations. "I spent 30 years believing fear kept us safe, but it was hope that saved us, and I will spend whatever time I have left teaching others not to make my mistake." Sarah took over the newly formed Department of Interspecies Relations. Her first act was to demolish the containment facility that had held Eris and turn it into a memorial for everyone who had suffered under the silence. And Nathan and Eris returned to the Carl 42 station, where the world had almost ended and somehow chose to begin again. They stood on the observation deck as the Lunari ship descended, carrying diplomats and scientists and people who wanted to understand how two individuals had changed the fate of billions. "Are you ready for this?" Eris asked. "For becoming the galaxy's most unlikely diplomats?" Nathan said. "Not even close." "Good," Eris said, "because if we were ready, it would mean we stopped being surprised by impossible things." Nathan pulled her close, and together they watched the ships arrive. And for the first time in 100 years, humanity looked up at the stars and remembered that wonder was worth the fear. In the distance, a new constellation was forming. The Lunari had rearranged orbital platforms to create a pattern visible from Earth. It took Nathan a moment to recognize the shape. A musical note, the first note of Emma's song. "They did that for her," Eris said quietly, "for the girl who sent love into the void and changed everything." Nathan felt tears on his cheeks and did not bother hiding them. She would have loved this, all of it. "She does love it," Eris said. "Somewhere in the quantum echoes, in the space between stars, she is still singing. And now, for the first time in centuries, the universe is singing back." Nathan looked at Eris, at this impossible woman who had taught him how to transform pain into hope, and realized that he was no longer the man who had stopped dreaming. He was something new, something that had been broken and chose to heal anyway. "I love you," he said, and the words felt like the first true thing he had spoken in years. "I love you too," Eris said. "Even though you are terrible at self-preservation, and your species makes beverages that taste like punishment." Nathan laughed. "Coffee is an acquired taste." "So is humanity," Eris said, "but I think I am starting to understand the appeal." They stood there as more ships arrived, as the desert filled with light, as the universe opened its arms and welcomed Earth back home. And Nathan Cole, the man who had spent 5 years proving the cosmos did not care, finally understood that he had been wrong. The universe cared. It just needed someone brave enough to sing first. 6 months after the world did not end, Nathan Cole stood before the Galactic Council and explained how humanity had learned to breathe again. The council chamber was a marvel of architecture that defied physics, a space that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Representatives from 70 species sat in judgment, their forms ranging from crystalline geometries to clouds of sentient gas. And at the center, asking questions with voices that harmonized across frequencies no human ear should hear, were the elders who had created the Cold Mist Protocol centuries ago. "Dr. Cole," spoke Elder Thren, a being that looked like a tree made of starlight, "you understand that your actions have created complications. The Mist's recalibration has spared 53 species we had determined were evolutionarily hollow. Some of those species may prove dangerous." "With respect, Elder," Nathan said, his voice steady despite his terror, "you do not get to decide who deserves to feel. Fear made you judge an entire galaxy. Love made us prove you wrong." The council chamber rippled with what might have been shock or might have been approval. Nathan could not tell. Eris stood beside him, her luminescence bright and defiant. The mist was designed to eliminate empty civilizations, but you forgot that emptiness is often just exhaustion. That silence is not the same as void. Humanity was not hollow. They were wounded, and wounds can heal if given reason to. But can they be trusted? Asked another elder, this one resembling an impossibly complex fractal. Humans have a history of violence when afraid, of destruction when threatened. What stops them from returning to that pattern? Nathan thought about Harker, about 5 years of grief, about every moment he had chosen isolation over connection. Nothing stops us. That is the point. We are not safe. We are not predictable. We are messy and contradictory, and we make terrible decisions when we are scared. But we are also capable of transforming pain into something beautiful. And that capacity, that illogical, stubborn refusal to let suffering have the final word, that is what makes us worth keeping around. The elders conferred in languages that hurt to hear. Then Elder Thren spoke again. "The Council grants Earth provisional membership in the galactic community. But understand, Dr. Cole, that you have become responsible for your species' emotional education. If humanity fails again, there will be no second chance. We know, Eris said. That is why we are here, to learn, to teach, to build bridges made of feeling instead of fear. The council adjourned. As Nathan and Eris left the chamber, Sarah was waiting with news. The first wave of exchange programs has been approved, she said, practically vibrating with excitement. 50 universities across Earth are hosting Lunari students, and we are sending 500 humans to Andromeda to learn emotional resonance techniques. Nathan, we are doing it. We are teaching the galaxy how to feel. Nathan smiled. Or the galaxy is teaching us how to feel without destroying ourselves in the process. Same difference, Sarah said. Over the next 3 months, Nathan watched humanity transform. Not perfectly, not easily. There were protests, conflicts, people who wanted to return to the safety of isolation. But for every voice of fear, there were 10 voices of wonder. Children learning to harmonize with Lunari mentors. Artists creating works that existed in emotional frequencies. Scientists developing technologies that measured not just data, but meaning. Earth was becoming something new, something that had been broken and chose to heal in full view of the galaxy. Nathan and Eris became the face of that transformation. They gave lectures. They mediated disputes. They stood as living proof that connection was possible even between beings who should have been impossible to bridge. But privately, in the quiet moments back at the Carl 42 station, they were just 2 people learning how to build a life together. "Do you ever regret it?" Nathan asked one night as they watched the stars. "Staying here? Giving up your ability to hear quantum echoes?" Eris was quiet for a moment. "I gave up hearing the past, but I gained the ability to be present, to be here, with you, in this moment, without the weight of every emotion the universe has ever felt. I call that a fair trade." "You are terrible at math," Nathan said. "And you are terrible at accepting that you deserve to be happy," Eris countered. "So we balance each other out." Nathan pulled her closer. "I have been thinking about Emma, about what she would think of all this. So, she would think her father finally stopped punishing himself for surviving," Eris said. "She would think you did what she always wanted. You looked up." Nathan felt tears again. They came easier now. He had learned with Eris's help that crying was not weakness. It was courage. It was the willingness to let pain exist without letting it consume everything. "I miss her," he said. "I know," Eris said. "And you always will. But Nathan, missing her does not mean you cannot also be here. With me, with the life you are building." "Both," Nathan said. "I can feel both." "Yes," Eris said. "That is what it means to be human. To hold contradictions and somehow make them into something beautiful." The next day, Nathan received a message from the Quantum Echo Institute, a new organization dedicated to studying residual emotional signatures. They had been analyzing the data from the connection he and Eris had made, the moment that had saved Earth. The signature was still there, still resonating. A quantum record of 2 beings choosing love over extinction that would echo through space-time for millennia. But more than that, they had detected something else, a response from the original echo that Eris had followed, from Emma. The message was simple, just a harmonic pattern that translated loosely to, "I am proud of you, Dad." Nathan sat in his office at the Carl 42 station, staring at the readings, and understood that his daughter had been trying to save him all along, that her love, sent into the void 5 years ago, had traveled across the galaxy, found Eris, and brought her back to teach Nathan that grief did not have to mean giving up. He thought about the cold mist, about protocols designed to eliminate emptiness, about how close humanity had come to failing, about how one melody, hummed by a child who would never know what it started, had changed the rules for an entire galaxy. And he realized that this was the most human thing of all, to send love into the void, to sing when no one was listening, to hope irrationally, to transform pain into something that could save worlds. 5 years later, Nathan and Eris stood at the dedication ceremony for the Emma Cole Memorial Station, a new orbital platform designed to facilitate emotional exchange between species. Thousands attended, including Harker, who had spent his retirement teaching conflict resolution through emotional understanding. "Your daughter started this," Harker said to Nathan. "She sent out a signal of pure love, and it changed everything." "She just wanted to sing," Nathan said. "The rest is what we chose to do with it." That night, Nathan and Eris returned to the Carl 42 station one last time. They were moving to the orbital platform, taking positions as permanent liaisons, but Nathan wanted one more night in the place where it had all begun. They stood on the observation deck, and Eris pointed to the sky. "Look." The constellation the Lunari had arranged, the musical note of Emma's song, was glowing brighter. Other species had added to it, creating a harmony of light across the solar system. A memorial made of stars. "The universe is singing her song now," Eris said. 73 species, all learning the melody a little girl hummed before she died. "She is immortal, Nathan, in the best way possible." Nathan felt something in his chest, a sensation he had thought he would never experience again. Peace, not the absence of pain, but the coexistence of pain and joy, loss and hope, grief and love. "Breathe, Nathan," Eris said, echoing the words she had said the night they met. "The beauty will not kill you. It will teach you to live again." Nathan took a breath, deep and full and real. "I am alive," he said, and meant it. And for the first time in decades, the man who had stopped dreaming looked up at the stars, and they looked back. And in that exchange, in that moment of recognition between human and cosmos, Nathan Cole understood the final truth. The universe had always cared. It had always been listening. He had just needed to be brave enough to sing first. 20 years after the woman from the stars looked back and the Earthling forgot how to breathe, Nathan Cole sat in his office aboard the Emma Cole Memorial Station and listened to humanity teach the galaxy how to cry. The workshop was part of the Emotional Exchange Program, now in its 18th year. 30 species sat in a chamber designed to accommodate beings of wildly different physiologies, all learning the same lesson. Tears were not weakness. They were transformation made visible. The instructor was human, a young woman named Kira who had been 5 years old when Nathan and Eris had saved the world. She had grown up in a universe that valued feeling, and it showed in everything she did. Crying is how humans process grief while refusing to let it consume us, Kira was explaining to a Earthling who looked like animated crystal. It is a physical manifestation of choosing to feel pain rather than becoming pain. Watch. She played a recording of a violin concerto, one that always made her cry. Within seconds, tears were streaming down her face. The Earthling watched, fascinated, as Kira continued teaching even while crying, demonstrating that emotion and function could coexist. "Your species is remarkable," the Earthling said, "to be so vulnerable and so strong simultaneously. It should not be possible." "That is kind of our thing," Kira said, wiping her eyes. "We specialize in impossible." Nathan smiled from the observation room. Eris appeared beside him, her luminescence dimmed with age but still beautiful. 20 years together had taught them how to exist in each other's space without words. "Remember when you thought you were dead inside?" Eris said. "Every day," Nathan admitted. "Mostly so I can remind myself how wrong I was." They walked through the station, past classrooms where humans taught aliens humor and aliens taught humans emotional control, past laboratories where scientists measured the quantum signatures of joy, past memorial gardens where every species that had been saved from the cold mist had planted something native to their world. Earth's contribution was a grove of trees, each one named for someone lost in the years of isolation. Emma's tree stood at the center, a Japanese maple that bloomed in colors that should not exist, modified by Lunari biology to express emotions through its leaves. "She would be 27 now," Nathan said, standing before the tree. "I wonder what she would have become." "She became a melody that saved billions," Eris said. "That is more than most people achieve in a dozen lifetimes." "It does not stop me from wishing she was here to see it." "She is," Eris said, pointing to the tree. The leaves were glowing, responding to Nathan's grief by expressing their own. In every person who learns to feel because of what her song started, in every civilization that chose hope over fear. She is here, Nathan. She has always been here. Nathan placed his hand on the tree, and for a moment he could swear he heard Emma laughing. Not the echo, not the memory. Just the sense that somewhere in the vast probability space of the universe, his daughter was proud of him. Sarah found them an hour later with news. "The Council wants to know if you are ready for another assignment. The Kepler sector has 3 species on the edge of emotional collapse. They need mediators." Nathan looked at Eris. They were 63 and ageless, respectively. They had given 20 years to teaching the galaxy how to feel. They had every right to retire. "What do you think?" Nathan asked. "I think we are terrible at retirement," Eris said. "And the universe still needs people who remember that love is a choice you make every day, even when it is terrifying." "We will go," Nathan told Sarah. That night, they hosted a dinner for the first graduating class of the Interspecies Emotional Studies program. 100 students from 40 species, all trained in the art of transformation, of taking pain and making it into connection. The Lunari student, a young man named Varus, raised his glass in a toast. "To Dr. Cole and Ambassador Valen, who taught us that the strongest force in the universe is not gravity or nuclear fusion, it is the stubborn human refusal to let suffering have the final word. To humanity," another student added, "who looked at extinction and said, 'Not today,' who looked at an entire galaxy of fear and chose to sing anyway." The toasts continued, each one a variation on the same theme. Humanity had been wounded, isolated, nearly erased, and instead of hiding, instead of letting trauma define them, they had transformed their pain into the foundation of galactic civilization. After the dinner, Nathan and Eris stood on the observation deck, watching Earth rotate below them. The planet looked different now, brighter, more connected. Orbital platforms surrounded it like a crown, each one a bridge to another world. "Do you ever regret answering my signal?" Eris asked. "Only when you make me drink that Lunari tea that tastes like regret," Nathan said. "I am serious," Eris said. Nathan turned to her. This woman who had crossed the galaxy because his song sounded lonely, who had taught him that grief was not a tomb but a garden where new things could grow. "Not once," he said. "Not even for a second. You gave me my life back, Eris. You taught me that love does not end with loss. It transforms. It becomes something that can reach across stars." "You taught me the same thing," Eris said. "Lunari are good at feeling, but humans are good at feeling and choosing what to do with it. That is the difference. That is what saved your world." "And 52 others," Nathan added. "And counting," Eris said, looking at the star charts on her display. 3 more species have requested emotional assessments. They want to learn how to feel before the mist marks them for evaluation. The fear that once controlled the galaxy has become curiosity. And curiosity is how healing begins. Nathan pulled her close and they stood together watching the cosmos. And Nathan thought about how strange and perfect his life had become. He had started as a man who studied the universe to prove it was empty. He had become a man who taught the universe that emptiness was just the space where new feelings could grow. "I have a confession," Nathan said. "I still talk to Emma, not to the echo, just to her. I tell her about the things we are building, about the species we help, about you." I know she is gone, but I still feel like she is listening. She is, Eris said. Not in the way you mean, but quantum signatures do not decay, Nathan. They transform. Your daughter is in every emotional resonance we create, in every connection we facilitate. She is the foundation code of the new galaxy. Listening is too small a word for what she does. She exists in the structure of how we love. Nathan felt tears on his cheeks. I wish I could tell her thank you. For the song, for bringing you to me, for giving me a reason to keep existing when I had run out of reasons. You can, Eris said. She pulled up a holographic interface. The Quantum Echo Institute has been working on something, a way to send messages into the probability space where echoes exist. It is experimental, untested, but if anyone has the emotional signature strong enough to reach across that barrier, it is you. Nathan stared at the interface. I could talk to her? You could try, Eris said. No guarantees, but trying is what humans do best. Nathan activated the interface. He did not know what to say. 20 years of words piled up in his throat. Finally, he just said what he felt. Emma, hi, it is Dad. I know you are not really here, or maybe you are. I do not understand the physics, but I wanted you to know that I am okay. More than okay. I am alive again. And it is because of you. Because you hummed a song that reached across the galaxy and found someone who was looking for exactly that melody. You saved the world, sweetheart. You saved me. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure your love continues to transform things. I promise. I love you. Always. He closed the interface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the tree in the memorial garden, Emma's tree 5 decks below, blazed with light so bright it was visible through the station's hull. She heard you, Eris whispered. Nathan closed his eyes and let himself believe it. The next morning they departed for the Kepler sector, another species on the edge. Another chance to teach that fear was not strength and that love was not weakness. Another opportunity to prove that humans, messy and contradictory and beautifully broken, had something to offer the galaxy that no other species could match. The ability to transform pain into hope, loss into legacy, silence into song. As the shuttle left the Emma Cole Memorial Station, Nathan looked back one last time. The constellation of light, the musical note that 73 species maintained in honor of a little girl who had just wanted to sing, glowed against the dark, and Nathan Cole, the man who had stopped dreaming, who had been taught to breathe again by a woman made of starlight, understood the final truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not that they could survive the darkness. It was that they could look at the darkness, acknowledge its power, and still choose to light a candle, to send a melody into the void, to hope irrationally, to love stubbornly, because in the end, that was what fuck yeah really meant. Not domination, not conquest, not strength through violence, but the revolutionary choice to feel deeply in a universe that demanded numbness, to connect fiercely in a cosmos that preached isolation, to transform pain into beauty even when beauty seemed impossible. That was humanity, messy, contradictory, beautifully, impossibly human. And the galaxy was learning, one species at a time, that being human was not a biological state. It was a choice, the choice to feel, to hope, to love, even when, especially when, it was terrifying. The stars looked back at Nathan and he looked back at them, and in that exchange, in that moment of mutual recognition, the Earthling finally understood what it meant to breathe. And somewhere in the quantum probability space between life and memory, Emma Cole smiled, and the universe sang her song, and the strange woman from the stars held the hand of the man who had forgotten how to dream, and they all, every being in that vast and wondrous cosmos, chose to feel one more day, together. Maybe that's what being human has always meant, not surviving the darkness, but choosing to light a match anyway. Nathan's story wasn't about saving the world. It was about remembering that we are never too broken to sing back to the universe. The miracle wasn't the stars answering. It was that for the first time in centuries, we dared to ask again. So tell me, what would you send into the void if you knew someone might be listening? When was the last time you turned pain into something that could reach another soul? And if love is the universe's oldest language, how fluent are we really? If you stayed with us until this last heartbeat of the story, write the word breathe in the comments, because that's what Nathan learned to do, and maybe that's what we all need to remember. Tell us your city, so we know where across this tiny blue dot you're listening from. Subscribe if you believe that feeling deeply is still the bravest act in the cosmos. Like, share, and pass this story forward. Not for views, but because somewhere out there, someone might need a reason to look up again. And don't forget to watch the next story appearing on your screen. Another small rebellion of emotion against the infinite silence, because in this universe, connection is the loudest sound we'll ever make.